These times are strange, it's quite surreal. It's never been like this. Remembering the good old days when we could hug and kiss. Back to gyms and restaurants and move through public settings. We'd give high fives and drink at dives, hold hands and dance at weddings. Now the days are longer, yet the darker in a way. We're pressing pause on normalcy, just going day by day. But we can still make jokes and art, garden, dance and sing. Cook, read books, try on fun looks and learn about new things. We can talk with friends of ours and have a heart to heart, just so long as we all stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you, 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical, so step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.
Hello and good evening and welcome to 6 Feet Apart Stellar Slam. It all comes down to this. These are the winners and wild cards from our 2022 open mic slams, and they're here tonight to compete for the big prize, the trophy, and of course the bragging rights, most importantly. My co-producer, Claire Hennessy, and I are happy to have you here. You'll see her a little bit later in the show, but welcome. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for supporting storytelling. What you're going to hear tonight is you're going to hear 9 storytellers tell a true personal story, loosely based on the theme leap of faith. There are no rants, no raves, no comedy routines, just really good stories. So glad you're here. I'm not sure how G-rated they'll be, so if you got little ones, you might want to shoo them from the room. But who knows? We never know what's going to come out on these open mics, but it's always great stories. So let's take a look at our storytellers. They're in our backstage. Good-looking bunch of people. We're going to say hello to them. There they are. Also want to say hello to all the folks that are watching on YouTube who aren't back here telling a story. So welcome. Great to have you here. And we have a special guest this evening, and she is the winner from last year's Stellar Slam. Shweta Bat. She won, and I can't remember what the theme was, but anyway, she crushed it. Whatever the theme was, she was all over it. And she has come back to talk to us for a bit and also to tell us a story while the voting happens towards the end of the show. So let's go ahead and we're going to bring her up and just say hello and see what she has been up to in the past year. Hey, Shweta, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Regina?
I'm good. I'm so glad you could come back and join us because I know, this year must have just been crazy after winning the Stellar Slam. I can only imagine.
Oh, definitely. I can't go to the grocery store without a mask. I can't really go anywhere without a mask. It's been hard.
It's been hard. And I'm sure you've got the trophy like somewhere in a place of honor on the mantle there it is. Look there.
I carry this everywhere with me along with my mask.
Just put it on a chain around your neck, just a little bit of bling there.
Yes.
Very subtle.
Yes, of course.
But I've seen you've been doing some storytelling shows along the way. I think I've seen you participate in stuff. I see stuff pop up on Facebook. Do you have anything coming up or anything you've done in the past year that was your favorite?
Sure. Yeah, I got to do stories from the stage last year, which was really fun, really cool. And I'll be in Fairfax, Virginia at the end of March to do the Women's Storytelling Festival. So that'll be fun.
That's great. Yeah.
A bunch of fun ones in between and after.
Well, great. Good. I'm glad we helped just launch that storytelling career of yours and the Women's Storytelling Festival. Put in a plug for Better Said Than Done and Jessica Robinson. That is always a great festival. So, well, thank you so much for being with us. You can take a break and enjoy all the stories, and we will bring you back at the end to tell us your story while the voting happens. So thanks so much for being with us, Shweta. Very much appreciated.
All right. Thank you. Good luck.
Thanks. All right. Well, we are going to get this party started. And we have a spinny thing. And usually the person who won the last one would have named it, but we switched it up a little bit. And I'm just going to use all of the names that we used during the past year. And so the first spinny thing, we'll have the tech guru bring it up. It is going to be called the Marshmallow Pot o' Gold O-Matic, because that's what Shweta named it last year. So a little bit to get out, but we'll have the tech guru pull that up and we'll see who our first teller is. The Marshmallow Pot of Gold O-Matic. Oh, and Sylvana Clark is our first teller. Sylvana actually won in December with the theme of 'Tis the Season. She's been with us for several shows, and we're so happy that she's here tonight. Sylvana, welcome to our stage. We're really happy to have you here. You've had a whirlwind tour of, I think you're on the East Coast now. So welcome. Thanks for staying up late for us.
Thank you. Yep, I'm on the East Coast at an Airbnb.
All right. Well, you have the stage.
I'm 8 years old and sitting at a chair, simply eating a sandwich. Suddenly, my mom's face. I was holding the sandwich the wrong way that she didn't like. And, you know, I grew up basically without ever being tucked into bed at night or even having my mom say, you know, home when I came home from school. And so I found my comfort in watching Lassie on TV. I mean, I was just fascinated how Lassie would always stay little Timmy and would, you know, comfort little Timmy and rescue little Timmy when little Timmy was in the well. And my hope was that one day I would have a dog that would comfort me and wag their tail when I came home from school. I also loved reading books about dogs, and I loved the World Book Encyclopedia. And if you know what that is, that's a wonderful book. And they had all of the coat of all the 114 dogs categorized by the American Kennel Club. And I'll tell you the difference between a Cocker Spaniel, a Springer Spaniel, a King Charles Spaniel, or a Poodle. And because I knew so much about dogs, I was fascinated with Lassie, and I would watch what Lassie was doing, and I developed a weird obsession. And all I wanted to do was train a dog for TV and get them famous. And I would watch Lassie, and I would see where the trainer was off at an angle, and he was getting Lassie to do what he wanted. I read every book I could on dog training. And then I practiced all those techniques on the only stuffed animal I had, a purple giraffe. And that was one well-trained giraffe. Well, my childhood was pretty dismal, but then I left for college and my life began. I graduated from college. I met a great guy. I had a wonderful creative job. And I just had all these great experiences. And I wasn't that lonely little girl anymore. But still, in the back of my mind was this idea of, I've got to train a dog and get them famous. And my husband would frequently say, oh, that you constantly talk about. But, you know, at that point, it was kind of scary because get a dog famous. There were no books back then, and Google didn't exist. And so a part of me was kind of holding back and saying, well, what if I get a dog and the dog is normal? I mean, that wouldn't work. We've got to have the dog get famous. So finally, I took that little leap of faith and I thought, I'm getting a dog. And I bought the cutest little floppy-eared Springer Spaniel puppy and called him Sherman. And because I had so much experience with that purple giraffe, I quickly taught Sherman to basic obedience, you know, sit, stay, come, all of that. But then I went on to more advanced things that all dogs should know. When I sneezed, Sherman would bring a tissue to me. He'd take it out of the box and bring it to me. He could slam dunk a little basketball into a toddler-sized basket. And he had a piano that he could, you know, play with his paw, and then he would sing or bark. But what I loved most about Sherman was if I get the mail and I came back 45 seconds later, his body just shook with excitement as if he's throwing me a welcome home party. And I just loved being around Sherman. Well, then Sherman soon had a agent. He had a 8x10 glossy headshot, and he had a resume. And I assume all your dogs have resumes. His credits included commercial for Honda and Plymouth Red Devil paint. He was featured on news magazines. He modeled for catalogs. And the biggest fame of all, Dog Fancy magazine selected the month. So there really is no bigger honor than that. Well, I needed to do some workshops for my job in Germany, and I took my husband and daughter along, and Sherman stayed with my brother. Unfortunately, Sherman slipped out the door without wearing a collar and ran away from my brother's house. And that was the night, on a cold, rainy night in Washington State, he got hit by a car. And he lay in a ditch until midnight when animal control finally came, picked him up, and took him to the vet. And the vet did sedate him, so he wasn't in any pain, but they had no way of identifying Sherman because back then, people didn't really chip their dogs. It just wasn't heard of back then. But the next morning in the vet's office, recognized Sherman from a local TV show and knew then where I worked. So they called my office, talked to my administrative assistant because I was in Germany. And the vet said, Sherman has 2 broken bones and internal injuries and he needs three. And my assistant, she raced to the vet's office, handed him her credit card, and said, I know Silvana doesn't care what it costs to save Sherman. And the vet said, he's not your dog. I can't treat him without Silvana's permission. And he said, just get hold of Silvana, call her up, and then have her call us and we'll take care of it. And my secretary just screams at me and says, she's in Germany. How do I get hold of her? Because in 1990, if you overseas, it was next to impossible to have somebody, come to track you down. It just wasn't done. And because Sherman didn't have that cert, didn't make it through the night. I came back a few days later and devastated at the news. And what hurt me the most was to think that Sherman was in that cold, muddy ditch without me there. He'd brought me so much joy, and I wasn't there when he needed me most. To the vet's office, I stormed in and I was just screaming, saying, why didn't you take care of Sherman? And the vet explained legally he couldn't treat Sherman without my permission. But then he said, I did have Sherman cremated because I knew that you would want his remains. And he hands me this cheap plastic box that has all of Sherman left in it. We took Sherman down to the beach and we scattered his ashes on his favorite beach where he would spend hours chasing the seagulls. And it was at that moment I realized the hardest part of having a dog is having to say goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Silvana. I guess Sherman needed to have a medical durable power of attorney or whatever that thing is called, a health directive. Who knew your dog needed one as well? So thank you, Silvana. We're going to keep this going. We're going to see what we should name it the next time. Let's see. I believe in April of last year, it was called the Story Go Round, and that was named by Corey May, the Story Go Round. So we'll have our tech guru bring up the story go round and we'll give it a spin around and around and we'll see who's coming up next. Corey May told last March, I believe he wasn't able to be here tonight, but we'll still go ahead and use the title of his spinner. And Tracy Sarin is up next. There she is. Tracy won in September on the theme of memories on our September show. So good to have you back, Tracy.
Thank you. Thanks, Regina.
You are very welcome. Good to see you again. And there you are. Take it away.
I'm leaning up against the wall of the candy store. My leather jacket hangs open and I have a cigarette dangling comfortably from the fingers of my right hand. My head is leaning back and my eyes are closed, like the world is just too painful to look at. I'm doing my best, James Dean. My friend Janine comes sauntering over and takes up a spot on the wall next to me. And she says to me, so what do you want to do tonight? And without ever opening my eyes to look at her, I bring up the cigarette to my lips and I take a long, thoughtful drag and let out a slow, smoky exhale. And I say, don't care, as unaffected as possible. The rest of our crew is scattered around us, some leaning up against the wall, some sitting sentry-like on milk crates, some just sitting on the floor, unaware and perhaps unconcerned about the foot traffic they're impeding. We like to think of ourselves as tough kids from the street. We're actually just a bunch of middle-class white kids with long hair and leather jackets. And what we mostly do is hang out on the corner, hang out in the park, we listen to the radio, we smoke, we drink beer. On a good night, we might go to the movies, bowling alley, pool hall. One summer Saturday afternoon, we're presented with a unique challenge. It is a very rare, warm day without being hot. It's sunny without being humid, and there's a cool breeze, and we're determined to take advantage of the day. But we can't think of anything to do. Everything we do is inside. Pool hall, bowling alley, movie theater. And we don't know what to do that's outside. We have discarded the idea of going to the beach because it's already noon, which is early for any of us to be out of our individual coffins. But it's late to get started on the beach. The beach is a long train ride away. We've also discarded the idea of the zoo or the aquarium because those are also long train rides away and expensive. In New York City, the zoo and the aquarium are very expensive. So we're trying to think up something to do that takes advantage of this very rare, beautiful Saturday afternoon that we have. And one of our friends says, hey, why don't we go down to the village and poke in and out of those cool record stores and bookstores and clothing stores? Our friend Janine says, but that's still mostly inside. Let's do something outside. But we are what you would call indoorsy kids. And our friend Christy pipes up with, you mean like horseback riding? And we all look at Christy. We're from Queens. None of us horseback ride. What is she talking about? So we all stand there kind of looking at our shoes, a little dejected, not really knowing what to do next. We know what's going to happen. We'll spend the entire afternoon sitting around thinking of what to do. And then before you know it, it'll be nighttime and we'll all just go to the park like we usually do. But then Janine's boyfriend, Angelo, who's a couple years older than us and way smarter than all of us, says, how much money does everybody have? Come on, let's see what we've got. And we all go digging in our pockets and pull out fistfuls of crumpled dollar bills, $5 here, $6 there. Together we have about $30, $35. And Angelo goes, give it to me, give it to me. He goes, that's plenty. And he jumps up and he starts to walk down the block. And we all stare at him and he turns around and goes, well, come on. And we said, where are we going? And he said, we're going to have a picnic. We said, a picnic? How are we going to have a picnic? Because a piece of pizza on a park bench is not a picnic. And he says, just come with me. So we look and we're like, all right, I guess we'll just believe that he knows what he's doing and we'll follow him. And off we go. A block away, we follow him into the supermarket and he moves like a man on a mission. He picks up a couple of big packages of chopped meat and some buns, paper towels, paper plates, a big bag of charcoal. What's he going to do with charcoal? And lighter fluid. He pays for everything with our crumpled dollar bills and he gets a fistful of change back in quarters. And he goes outside to the payphone. A payphone, it's 1989. This is how you get in touch with people, a payphone. And he starts feeding the payphone with quarters. And this is the side of the conversation that we hear over and over again. Yo, we're having a cookout in the park. Meet us there and bring shit. And we were like, a cookout? How are we having a cookout? We don't have access to a barbecue or anything. But he takes the bags of groceries and we go back to Janine's house and he goes into the house and very quietly, he pulls the rack out of the oven. And then he comes outside and he takes the metal lid off the garbage can. And so off we go into the park with a couple bags of groceries, the rack from the stove, and the metal lid off the garbage can. So we walk into the park with like a garage set. And we see our friend meeting us coming in the other side of the pack, and he's got a couple packages of hot dogs. And they immediately get to work. And they turn the lid of the garbage can over, and they stabilize it on some rocks, pour the charcoal into it, set it on fire, and put the rack over it. Instant barbecue. Next thing we know, they're making patties out of the meat and throwing it on the grill. And in 5 minutes, we've got burgers. And then our other friends start to come into the park. Some of them have actually been shopping. There's cases of soda and cases of beer. One friend comes in with a container of potato salad she bought and a package of forks. Another friend comes in with a salad, a Tupperware with salad that she made. One friend comes in with vegetables, raw vegetables that she cut up. A couple friends came with just stuff that they grabbed off their parents' counters, like a half-empty package of chocolate chip cookies or whatever was left of the Hostess cupcakes in the cabinet. A friend brought a radio, another friend brought a bat and a ball so we could play softball. And that's what we did for the whole day. We ate and we drank and we played ball and we listened to the music and we danced and we sang, and we were there all afternoon till the sun went down. And then somebody ran to the store and bought marshmallows, and we roasted marshmallows, and we stayed there all day. And it was the nicest day we had all summer. And when it was time to go home, we picked up all the empties and all the food and threw it into the big garbage can in the park. And then all we had to do was bring the lid back and the oven rack back, because that was all that we started with, really. We didn't have that much. All we had was somebody with a good idea and a bunch of people with the wherewithal to follow it. We were looking for a way to make the day worthwhile. And all we needed was us. And it was the most fun we ever had. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tracy. Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
story. So glad to have you here. It's such a fun night. We're just getting started, but we're going to keep it going. And let's see what we named it last. I forget. I'm going to lose complete track of which one I did last time. So if I repeat, well, I'm sorry. We're going to call this, I believe we're up to Mother, May I Select a Story? I think that was the May one, and that was chosen by Tori Shine, who unfortunately, well, good for her, she's on a cruise, so she couldn't be here this evening either. So there you go. So Mother, May I Select a Story? That was a very appropriate. We'll have our tech guru bring it up, and we'll see who is coming up to tell. Like I said, that was our May, and I'm sure Mom's the Word. I think that was our theme for May, and so hence the spinny thing. And John Aubert. John Aubert is one of our wild cards. And what we do to get the wild cards, by the way, is we throw all the second places in and we draw them out of a hat, and there you go. So we've got John Aubert, who has told on our show in the past year, certainly. And we're happy to have him back. I'm glad you could make it. John, take it away.
All right. 25 years ago, on a cold, rainy November morning in a lonely cotton field out in the middle of California's vast Central Valley, I took a leap of faith that changed my life. 1 week earlier, I'm on a plane from San Diego, where I've just taken a new job, and I'm returning back to Northern California to hook up with my friend Martin for a cool guys weekend. We're going to go camping. It's a long 3-day weekend. He picks me up at the airport, and we immediately park ourselves at the Gordon Biersch Brew Pub in San Francisco under the Bay Bridge. And we're catching up, and we're having a grand old time. And I can't help but to notice a beautiful, radiant woman across the way, long, curly, blonde hair, and an energetic smile. And my friend Martin immediately says, "Oh, you got to go talk to her." And I say, "I'm not that guy. I'm not just going to pick women up in a bar, and she's at a table filled with other women." So we continue to catch up, and then I notice that she stands up, and I think she's separated from the herd. Here's my chance. And so I time it so that I walk over in her direction and I'm walking right up to her and our eyes lock and I walk right past her. I chicken out. I circle back around to my friend Martin and I say, it's a complete fail. I chickened out. And he says, it's okay. I take complete responsibility. I didn't properly prepare you. So here's the deal. Say your name, dumbass. It's not that hard. So we keep catching up. And after a while, I see that the entire table of women are getting up and they're leaving. And I think I'm going to miss my chance. So I head over in her direction and I simply say, hi, my name's John. I didn't want you to leave without taking a chance to meet you. And we have a lovely, very brief conversation. She tells me she's moved out from Ohio. I say a few things about myself and I am just smitten. I say, hey, can I have your phone number? And she says, no, but I'll take yours. And so I fumble around and find something to write my number down. And we make loose plans to meet up on that Monday when I'll be headed back home. And I have a great weekend with my friend Martin. And on Monday, there's a message. So Martin drops me off at the airport and she picks me up at the airport. And we have what we call our airport date. And we just drive around and talk about life, talk about our families. We're both the babies of the family, the youngest. We both grew up Catholic and didn't particularly feel Catholic anymore. We both have a deep soft spot in our hearts for our moms who were strong women who went through a lot. Well, she drives me to the airport. Unbeknownst to her, I have canceled every flight so I could take the last flight out. And she walks me all the way to the gate back when that was a real common thing. And she says, so, when you can be back in Northern California? And I say, a lot sooner than I thought. So I get on the plane. And one thing that I forgot to tell you is that when we walked out of the brew pub after she left, I sat down on the curb and I said, Martin, I think she's the one. And he looks at me and he says, shut up. And he socks me. Well, I get home back to my life in San Diego, and the next morning, the first thing I do is I write her a note and I say, you were the beginning and end of a wonderful weekend. Next time, I hope there's a lengthy middle. And I was really hoping she wouldn't catch the double meaning because I meant a long time. Well, we talk on the phone briefly midweek, and then on Friday, we are on the phone for hours, late at night. And I say, wow, all this time on the phone, we could have just jumped in the car and met halfway. And she says, hey, that's a good idea. So I get out a map and I figure out the halfway point on Interstate 5 between San Francisco and San Diego is a little place called Lost Hills, California. So within about a half an hour, we've made a few arrangements. We both jump in the car and we're going to meet at the northwest corner of whatever intersection is there in Lost Hills. No cell phones. We jump in the car. 3.5 hours later, we both drive into the parking lot of a Denny's 30 seconds apart. Well, we're not quite ready for the energy of a Denny's, and so we just both jump in her car and drive a little bit east of town, and we just talk. We talk about life. We talk about our goals. We talk about what's important. And both of us, I think, pass the interview. Finally, the sun rises. We double back to the Denny's, take a quick pit stop, but we're not really ready for Denny's energy still. So we drive westward out of town and we turn off onto a little road called Brown Material Road out into a cotton field. And on that rainy, cold November morning, as the mist is falling on the windshield, we both look at each other and kiss, and our eyes fill with tears. And I say, is this it? And she says, this is it. And thus began our lengthy middle with the best leap of faith I've ever leapt. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for your story on the theme of leap of faith. I want to give a shout out to some of the YouTube folks that are watching us. We've got Jessica Robinson speaking of the Women's Storytelling Festival. Go to Better Said Than Done. Google that and you'll find all the information you need, including when Shweta Bat is going to be telling her story. So there you go. Better Said Than Done, Storytelling Festival. All right, moving on from Jessica, who I've plugged enough. Thank you, Jessica. Mary Jo Pollock is with us. Maya Shannon from Canada. We have somebody from Canada along with Brian Nazimuk. So we've got the real international thing going here, including my co-producer, Claire Hennessy, although technically she's a Yank now. Rona Levy and Beverly Wagstaff. So if you're on YouTube, let us know where you're from. Put something in the chat. Be sure to comment on the stories. It's always nice for the storytellers to get that feedback. So, and speaking of storytellers, we're going to keep it going and we are going to spin that thing one more time. And I think we're up to the musical sorting box is the name of this. And that came from Ingrid Nixon, who is not with us tonight either. She won in May, but she is hiking or driving through Patagonia. And I believe she's on her way to Antarctica, which I don't really makes sense to me because she lives in Alaska. So it seems she'd have enough frozen stuff around her, but I guess she wanted to go from one part of the earth, from the top all the way to the bottom. So Ingrid could not be with us, not good Wi-Fi in Patagonia, apparently. So hence the reason we have our wildcard slots, but we'll have the tech guru spin the musical sorting box and we'll see who's coming up to the stage next. Now, I think the story that Ingrid told that night actually had to do with a musical or a music box. So I think that's why she chose that. Hey, speaking of Brian Nazimuk, it's his turn to come up to the stage all the way from Canada. Whew, I just flew in and my arms are tired. All right, Brian, we're happy to have you here. He's told on our stage. He's one of our wild cards, but he's told several times in the last year. Brian, welcome.
Thank you. I knew from an early age that I was a romantic. My first great love happened in grade 3. Her name was Miss Peevers. She was an older woman. It didn't work out. After that, it was Marlene Rosenfeld, Debbie Wagman, Tia Parker. All I wanted was to have a girlfriend. But when I was 14, everything changed. Within the space of 6 months, my father, my best friend, and the little girl I babysat for all died. My world was shattered. I closed off to everyone. I didn't want to get that fear of loss again. It's the summer of my junior year in high school, and I'm volunteering at a day camp for underprivileged kids. The new counselors are sitting around, and she stands up and begins to speak. She's lovely. She seems to really care about the kids, and I'm thinking, no, I don't want to let her in. I don't want to get close. So I fairly ignore her for the first little while, but from time to time we talk. She makes great eye contact, but I'm not going to take that leap. It's the last week of the summer camp, and she's talking to me, and for some reason I ask her for her phone number, and she says yes. And 3 weeks later, we're on a date. We're seeing my favorite trio at the time, a group called the Lettermen. They sing intricate harmonies of songs like, "When I Fall in Love, It Will Be Forever." And we're at the concert, and I'm sitting next to her. I'm not too sure what to do. I want to concentrate on her, but my favorite group is on the stage. And then we go for dinner. And we talk. It's a lovely chat, and we find out things about each other that we never knew, like she has a brother, and I have a brother. She has a cottage and I have a cottage. She loves math and I have a brother. And when she makes a point, she sort of touches my hands and my heart jumps, but I don't know. I'm scared. As I'm walking her home, I'm thinking, what am I going to do? Shall I maybe mention about seeing her again? But before I could say anything, we're at her door and she says good night. On my way back home, I start to think about maybe I do want to open up. Maybe I do want to make the leap. But I have to plan something special, and I know what to do. My uncle has a penthouse apartment with a beautiful view of the sunset. Nothing's in the way. 2 weeks later, I phone her up and invite her for dinner, and before that, we're going to go to my uncle's and watch the sunset, and I'm going to tell her how I feel. We get there, we go to the balcony. I'm standing, holding on. I'm nervous. I go over everything I'm going to say. The sun is in exactly the right spot. And I turn to her and she turns to me and I say, nothing. We turn back. I'm beating myself up for being a coward. The sun goes down and I'm thinking, it's getting dark. I should say something. And I turn to her and she turns to me and I say, it's getting dark. We should go. We leave. We go to the elevator. I push the button. The doors open. We go in. I push the button. The doors close. The elevator starts to descend and all of a sudden we're embracing. We're hugging. We're kissing for 27 floors. The greatest kiss of my life at that time and still top 6. We get to the main floor. Ding! The doors open. I know what I should do. Push that button. Go back up there and tell her I feel. And I don't. We leave. I escort her home. We don't say much. She says goodnight. She goes in. And I'm beating myself up as I go back to the subway thinking, I should have said something. I want to say something. Then I stop. And I realize we kissed. It didn't matter. We kissed. She must feel the same way about me. I know what I'm going to do. And for the next 3 days, I'm happier than I've been in a long time. I sing in the subway. I like my mother. It's fabulous. The 3rd day I come home and there's a letter from her. I'm going to phone her after I open this up. Maybe it's a thank you note. I could tell from the return address. And I open it up gingerly and I want to keep it for our memory box. And I sit on the couch and I read it. It says, Dear Brian, I can't see you anymore. I have a boyfriend. All the best, Trisha. And I melt into the couch and my heart cracks again. It's a year later. I'm back volunteering at the daycare at a special time with the kids. And then all of a sudden, this woman stands up in our first meeting and she's lovely. And I'm feeling right away, this is maybe somebody I want to relate to because she seems like she cares and she smiles. And I do. And over the next 3 weeks, we walk each other to the subway. At the end of the summer, I go to her cottage and we spend 3 years together. I have a girlfriend. And I realize I should really thank Trisha because had she not broken my heart, it never would have been opened up for somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you for your story on a leap of faith. We're going to keep it going. We are going to spin. The name of it this time is going to be, it's The Fickle Finger of Fate Omatic, which was the name chosen by Neshama Franklin when she won in June on the theme of Schools Out. So we'll have Mark spin that thing and we'll see who's going to be coming up next for The Fickle Finger of Fate Omatic. That's it. Here it comes. High tech we got going on here. I don't know if you noticed all the bells and whistles. Katie Knudsen. Katie Knudsen. Happy to have you here from Minnesota. And Katie won in November on the theme of Hoodwinked. She won our November show. Theme was Hoodwinked. So Katie, welcome and take it away.
Ooh, sorry. Okay. When I was 17 years old, I had the coolest car of anybody I knew. It was low to the ground and white. It had headlights that popped up out of the hood. It had a sunroof. It was a stick shift, which impressed all my guy friends. And it was a little tiny 2-seater, a Pontiac Fiero. It was my dad's midlife crisis car that he had handed down to me. Yeah, it was also known as a death trap. I mean, if it got into an accident, it would either crunch like a pop can or it would explode upon impact. But I was a safe driver. It was fine. And I looked good. So I was driving this car after I graduated high school up to my summer job. Now, I had been working this summer 2 hours away from my parents' house, and every now and then I would go back down to visit my parents. And one night I was hanging out with some friends from high school and realized it was 11 o'clock at night, and I had to work at 9 o'clock the next morning. So I got in my car, pitch black, and I began to drive. As I was driving, I'm passing cornfield after cornfield after cornfield. I have my sunroof open with the windows cracked and my 90s mixtape blaring at top volume. Of course, I don't have a cell phone because nobody my age has a cell phone. And besides, who needs one? And as I'm driving, I noticed something to my left. There are very few cars on the road, and this is a fire driving next to me, keeping pace with my car. It's a fire in the grassy median, keeping pace with my car. And I slowly start to be able to make out in the light of the fire, it's an engine. And there's the hood of that car smashing against that driver's windshield. They cannot see where they are going. I turn back to make sure I'm still on the road, just in time to see the hood fly off of that car and begin to cartwheel in front of me, barely nicking my front bumper and then continuing and crashing into the ditch on the far side. I look back and that car has now swerved just behind my bumper, so close that I can't even see the headlights until they reappear and slam into the ditch on the other side. I am 17 years old, and I know that I have moments to make a life or death decision. Do I slam on my brakes and stop and try to help this person? There's nobody around, but I'm 17. I weigh about 100 pounds. My friends all call me a weakling, and I'm likely to faint at the sight of blood. Would I even be able to help? And if I did, would it be safe? Or my other option is I keep driving and I find a payphone and I call 911. That way I know that the people can actually help this person. But would they be able to get there in time? I decide to keep driving. I take a leap of faith that I've made the right decision and I go, stepping on my gas, watching the needle go up higher and higher, praying that a police officer sees me and pulls me over for speeding so I can tell them about the car back there. But all I see is cornfield after cornfield after cornfield. Up on the right, there's a light. It's a farmhouse. And there's an overpass, but there's no exit. So I keep going, cornfield after cornfield after cornfield. Finally, I see it in the distance. There's a rest stop. I pull in and pick up the receiver of the payphone, conveniently lowered so you can get it right from your car window, and dial 911 for the first time in my life. Hello, 911, what's your emergency? Hi, there's a car. It's on fire. It just crashed into the ditch. Please send somebody to help them. Okay, where are you? Where am I? I'm in the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. Okay, I was driving north on Highway 41. I think, yeah, I passed Nina. I'm not quite to Green Bay yet. I'm at the rest stop. I can't be that far. You must be able to figure out where I am. Okay, I think I know where you are. Now, where's the accident? I couldn't remember the name of that overpass. I think it was about 10 minutes behind me. Okay, we'll send somebody to look for them. Should I go back? Should I try to help them? No, ma'am, just calm down and then go where you need to go. So I hang up the phone and I pull forward in case anybody else needs to use this payphone at 11:30 on a Tuesday night in the rural Wisconsin. And then suddenly I can't catch my breath. I can't even breathe in, and the tears just start to pour down my face. I realize that had I been going just a little bit faster, that hood could have sliced me right in half. And had I been going just a little bit slower, that car wouldn't have missed my back bumper. It would have driven into the full gas tank right behind me. That person could have died. I could have died. And I had no way of knowing. All I had left was faith. And so I sat there and I prayed that that person was okay. And I had faith that they were okay, that I would be okay, and that I'd made the right choice. And to this day, I still have faith that somehow, somewhere, I will find out how that person made it, or if they didn't, and whether or not my leap of faith landed the way I wanted. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you very much. We are about halfway through, maybe a little bit more. I'm really not good at keeping track of how many people have been up there. I'm just engrossed in the stories. Claire will wave at me and tell me when we're done and tell me when I need to move on, because she often does that in the shows. You can't see Claire back here, but if you did, you would see how animated she is trying to talk sign language to me or something, tell me when I've screwed something up. Although, am I doing okay, Claire? Can I get a thumbs up? Am I all right? Okay, I got 2 thumbs up. All right, I must be doing all right. We are going to keep going with the spinny thing. And next, it's called the Dizzy Destiny. And that was named by Allison Mello, who won in August and unfortunately could not be here tonight due to a family emergency. So hence the wild cards. But Dizzy Destiny can give us the next name. We'll have our tech guru, the man behind the scenes, the man with the magic power to spin the Dizzy Destiny and let us know what name is going to come up this time. Here we go. And coming to our stage next will be Neshama Franklin. Neshama is the one that came up with Fickle Finger of Fate as the name of the spinny thing. And she won in June on the theme of School's Out. So Neshama, always good to have you with us. I know technology and bad Wi-Fi, not a good combo. So thanks for sticking with it and coming up to our virtual stage. There you are, Neshama. It's all yours.
Okay, here I am. So we met at work. I mean, at the registrar's office of Columbia University. Was my first job, and I was virtually unemployable. I'll tell you how I got there. Well, I had flunked out of my first year of college ignominiously, and I had to go back to New York City to my parents' apartment. I call it the scene of the crime. And I had to do something, and I had never babysat or done food service. You know, I could type because they sent me to speed writing school. So my parents called in a favor from my old nanny, whose name was Amelie Sullivan. She was German, but she had married the Irish postman because she kept waiting for letters that never came. And so she had moved up in the world. She was working at the registrar's office, and she shoehorned me in to get a job. I was a transcript clerk, and all I had to do was pass out some forms, make some copies, etc. But there I was running around in a peasant blouse, and this was the late 50s. Remember, burn your bra? Of course, I had burned it. And so every time I went to the Xerox machine to make those copies, and when I bent over to make the copies, anyone in the vicinity would get an eyeful. There were a couple of guys who got an eyeful. They were army buddies who had come to New York City from the South, where they had gotten together, and they were coming to make their fame and fortune, which you don't get at the registrar's office. But still, it was Ed, the one from the South, who kind of snagged me first. And why Ed? Because he was so exotic to me. He talked very slowly in this molasses accent. He had bedroom eyes. He was very shy. So we would go out with the other buddy, John, to the West End Bar and Grill. That's where everybody went after work there. And so I would lean against Ed in this high back booth and you could say, sop up the pheromones. But since he didn't have anything to say, there was John sitting on the other side of the table, and he had a lot to say. Now, he was a big old healthy guy, pretty skinny because he didn't have much money in those days. But despite that kind of farm boy quality, it turned out he was very smart and very funny and a little contentious. And we had this buddy knife back and forth. It was pretty exciting. And then Ed got cold feet because I was a wild, braless Jewish girl, and he had a fiance tucked away in Lynchburg, Virginia. And so that left me and John kind of like two legs of a three-legged stool. In order to stay upright, we had to lean together. And when we leaned together, the pheromones started to pop as well. And so there we were. And I have to tell you, it's a really good way to meet a mate, because you get to know the rest of the package before it gets wiped out by the limerence of love. And so I had this package and he had this package, and we loved it so much that we moved in together. Can you believe it? You didn't do that back in the late 50s. We tried to cover it up because the registrar's office had two separate entrances, but people were not fooled, especially old nannies. So whenever I passed by Amelie's desk, which was many times a day on my way to the Xerox machine, she would mutter, "You should get married. It's time to get married. Why aren't you married?" And so there John and I were sitting high above the Hudson River on a cliff. And I said, "Hey, Amelie says we should get married. What do you think?" He said, "You know, it never occurred to me, but oh, you want to get married?" And out of my mouth came, "Oh, yes." I really surprised myself, and it kind of jostled my heart, which made a plunge down into the Hudson River and popped back up to land in my chest again. I think it was, what the hell am I doing? I'm only 18 years old. There are so many men out there, but I have pledged my troth. This was really important. And so indeed, we were married. And we had, you know, I call it the longest sleepover that didn't have to, you know, stop until it did, until death did us part 35 years later. So there we were. John had smoked since he was 14. And he had, for, you know, an athletic guy, he had this lung condition he called asthma. And I always thought we should get it looked into, but he said, until we had our first grandchild. And then he stopped smoking just like that. I didn't think it was possible, but he had to go to the doctor. And the doctor said, "You have a very serious autoimmune illness." It wasn't lung cancer. And there's some drug that might kind of help, but if it doesn't help, it'll take you out. And so indeed, the drug took him out. And there he was on a ventilator. And I was in the ICU and he couldn't breathe on his own. Now, John had a kind of an exquisite sense of timing. And we had planned that we were going to unplug him since it was hopeless Friday morning when you could be surrounded by family, as they say. But John knew when he wanted to depart. It was going to be between him and me. And so there I was standing with my hands on his torso. He looked like a felled Roman statue. He was so well fleshed, even with this awful disease. And right under my fingers, I felt, a leap. And it was like my heart flew out of my chest. But instead of dropping down, it went out into the cosmos and then returned to me. I felt both enormous and tiny at the same time. And I realized that John had given me an extraordinary gift. He had released me to a life that I had never experienced before, because I went straight from my parents' apartment to living with him. And now I was going to be an independent woman. And for that, I am hugely grateful. 2 leaps, beginning and end, but I know there's going to be more leaps in my life. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nishama. Thank you so much for that story. Very heartfelt. Thank you. We're going to keep going with our spinny thing, and it's called the Whirl of Wordsmith this time, and that was actually Tracy Starrin who gave us that name when she won in September. So the Whirl of Wordsmith. I appreciate when it's not a tongue twister, because some people go all in and trying to do a really complicated name, so I have to say it like 10 times a night. Whirl of Wordsmith. That was right on the edge, Tracy. It was right on the edge there. But let's have the tech guru come out of his lair and spin the handle on the Whirl-O-Matic and see who we've got coming up now. We're getting down to the end, folks. Bonnie Gardner. Bonnie Gardner won in October on the theme of skeletons. So we're happy to have her back. Bonnie, glad you are with us tonight, and take it away.
All right, thank you. So we're standing at the ticket booth, me, my boyfriend, and his best friend. It's Friday night, and we thought it would be a hoot to drive down from our college to their hometown and see their old high school football game. Except we're not high school students anymore. I mean, I'm a college freshman, and apparently that's an adult. And adult ticket prices are $3 each. At the bar we hang out at back at college, they have 50-cent drafts at happy hour. Now, I'm not a math major, but $3 is 6 beers each. This is way too expensive. Now Cliff, the friend, he's like motioning towards the far end of the football field, and he says, dudes, we can sneak in. And my boyfriend says, oh yeah, come on, Bonnie. It's really easy. We used to do this all the time. Now my gut immediately says, oh, no. You are not sneaking into a high school football game. But my heart says, have you seen your boyfriend? Because he's smoking hot. And it's true. He is the hottest guy I've ever dated. He has dark hair, these deep blue eyes, broad shoulders. I even think his name is hot. It's Laith, like faith with an L. His grandmother is from England. I am punching way above my weight with this guy. And in a contest between my heart and my gut, my heart's going to win this round. So we head down to the far end of the field, and I'm thinking maybe there's a gap in the fence or there's a gate that's unlocked, but no, there's none of that. There's a tree, and we are going to climb that tree and walk out on a limb and jump the fence. Well, Cliff goes first because of course Cliff goes first. He's completely wild. And then Laith jumps. And now I'm standing out on the limb, looking down at the ground, and like it's a good 10-foot drop, and the ground isn't level. It's like a hillside. There's a slope, and my gut is saying, back your butt up right now. But Laith is looking up at me, and he's saying, come on, babe, I gotcha. And I cannot resist those blue eyes. So I jump. And I do not stick the landing. No, I hit hard, and I am rolling down the hill, and this pain shoots up my left leg, and then Laith is helping me up, but he's got this look on his face, and then Cliff is there, and he's saying, dude, are you okay? Well, 2 a.m., I'm lying on the couch at Laith's family's house. Everyone is upstairs asleep. My leg is in a cast, and the painkillers they gave me at the ER have long worn off. Yeah, it's broken. And as the waves of pain wash over me, all I can think is, I cannot tell my parents about this. Oh, I have to tell them I broke my leg. I'm going to be home for Thanksgiving in a cast, but I can't tell them that I did it sneaking into a high school football game for a boy. I'm supposed to be the first person in the family to graduate from college. They cannot know that I have lost all common sense. So when I call them a few days later with some ridiculous story about how I slipped down the stairs, they're concerned, of course, But this is before cell phones. It's a long distance call. It's a little pricey. We keep things brief. And this is before helicopter parenting. It's not like they're gonna shutter the family business and drive 400 miles across 2 states to come take care of me. Nope, I have to take care of myself. Well, at first it was really hard to get across this massive campus on crutches. Lath didn't have a car, but I figured out how to put together rides with unicorns, which is what I call friends who actually had parking passes. And then on my own, I found a really good doctor, and I worked on scheduling my follow-up appointments in between my classes. No, I cannot come in on Tuesday. I have a poli-sci exam. And then I was so happy when the cast came off, except I couldn't bend my ankle because it had been immobilized for all these weeks. Well, I had to figure out what physical therapy was and how to get it. And I did at the facility where our Division I athletes got their rehab. I'd sit there in the hot tub, the hydrotherapy pool, with the football team, and I'd think, I am taking care of myself. Lath and I broke up after I graduated. It was fine. And I'd like to say that making that leap was the last dumb thing I ever did for a boy. But it wasn't. But when I followed my heart instead of my gut, at least I knew I could take care of myself if I couldn't stick the landing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie, very much. We are down to our last 2 tellers. And I know you're all wondering, what is that spinny thing going to be called this time? Well, and by the way, this was named by Bonnie Gardner after she won the October show. And she called it the Spinning Dinner Plate of Mashed Potatoes and Chance, which I think I'm going to have to put like a word limit on how long the name can be. It's going to have to be some rules put in, and you can't have the same letter at the beginning of a word repeat more than 2 times. It's just, and only 5 words. Those are going to be my rules. Write that down, Claire. All right, we're going to spin the dinner plate of mashed potatoes and chance. I think it was November, so it fit the theme. Bonnie, I got to give you that. So the dinner plate of spinning mashed potatoes. Let's bring the tech guru up to spin the plate and see which of our 2 tellers is coming up next, the 2 that we have left in the list. Next up to our stage is Claire Castell. Claire, yay. Claire told in March for our lucky show, and she's a wild card, so I've heard, but Corey May could not be here, so we plucked her name out of the hat, and we're happy to have her here. Claire, welcome, and welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Why is your Jesus better than my Jesus? A young, pretty woman in El Salvador asked me, and I was without an answer. And how did I get signed up for telling people in El Salvador that what my church believed was better than what they believed? Well, when I was about 16, my twin sister and I got foster parents. When my father died, my mother had died a few years earlier, and our foster parents are these born-again Pentecostals. And they believe that anyone who didn't believe in their flavor of Christianity was going to hell, except maybe not the Southern Baptists. They might make it. And, the Pentecostals went to church all the time. They went to Sunday school, Sunday morning service, Sunday evening service, Wednesday night, and Friday youth group. My father had been a Presbyterian, and they just go once a week and you're good. So I wasn't really sure that this whole Pentecostal thing was for me. But it became immediately clear that we had to get saved in order to be loved by our parents, our new parents. We would not be okay. I would not be okay until I accepted Jesus. So I bought into the program and accepted Jesus. And they were happy for a while, but I really did feel that I had to keep proving myself. Now, our pastor was Pastor Willis, and bless his heart, he was not more than 5 foot tall, bald head, except for these little spinny little tufts of gray hair coming out. And he decided that he would organize a group of teenagers to proselytize to the Catholics in San Salvador, in El Salvador. And so I signed up. Surely my foster parents would love me if I went on this missionary trip. And they even sounded proud, like, maybe you'll meet a nice Christian man, Christian boy in your group to marry. Well, I wasn't really thinking that, but again, Pastor Willis, to save money, decided that we were not going to fly. We were going to drive. He organized a caravan of 4 used Volkswagen buses and an old Mercedes-Benz to drive the 20 young people from Livermore through Mexico, Guatemala, and land in El Salvador. And it soon became clear that this was not really well thought out. Pastor Willis brought pills for us to take for malaria, prevent malaria. Now, he thought if 1 pill was good, 3 were better. So we kept getting them at every meal, another malaria pill. But some of us were really, really getting sick. One night on the road, we found a nice little motel. It was a sweet motel. And we finally got a little bit of sleep. And we all knew not to drink the water in Mexico. And we made sure we only drank from the big bottled water dispenser in the front kitchen. But on the day that we were pulling out, we saw the gardener filling the water dispensers from the hose, from the garden hose. So by then, several of us were sick from either the malaria overdoses or from the intestinal problems we now had from drinking the water. One thing that Pastor Willis didn't realize was that the further south you went in Mexico and Central America, the less likely the gas stations had working toilets. We were lucky if they had toilets, period, but flushing, that was another matter altogether. So our caravan of young people would pull up for gas. We'd bail out and get in line for the bathrooms. And at some point, we just stopped caring whether or not the toilet would flush or not. Just was nothing else to do for it. But we did learn the best thing to do was to be the first one to jump out at the next gas station and be the first in line, because the person who was at the end of the line, well, it wasn't pretty. I sure hope that this nightmare trip would prove to my foster parents that I was a good enough Christian and I deserved to be accepted and to be loved. Well, when we got to San Salvador, I was pretty sick and slept in at the dormitory. And when I recovered enough, I joined the group at the little local church who were talking to the people who live there. And our missionary kids were telling them about how to get saved. The residents were really sweet people. And I was kind of standing back, watching and listening. And I became very uncomfortable with the presumption that we, the Americans, were right and they were not. And that's when this young woman in her 20s, walked over to me and asked me Why is your Jesus better than my Jesus? Well, I have my Spanish Bible and I go, well, in Matthew 3, no, wait, maybe 4, no. Okay, well, in Corinthians 13, I think. No, well, Revelations. No, it's not Revelations. I got nothing. I really got nothing. A few days later, we returned home. My foster parents never really loved us. Nowadays, I don't tell anyone what to believe. I don't know if there's a heaven or if there's a hell. Maybe you do. But let's make a deal and let each of us find our own way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Claire. Thank you for your story. And we are going to keep moving. We are down, of course, to the last teller and the spinny thing. I don't even know if we're going to spin it, but if we were to spin it, it would be called If the Fate Allow, because that is what Katie Knudsen named it when she won on Hoodwinked in November. So let's go ahead and spin or not spin, because I think we know who the last teller is. Yes, it's Bowen Lee. We are going to bring Bowen up to our stage, and happy to have you here. We're winding it up. Everybody get ready to vote. And Bowen, there you are. You have the stage. Thank you.
Okay, but I'm not on my speaker view, so hang on. I don't know why. Okay, I have to pin myself. Sorry. Okay, there we go. I can see myself now. Have you ever been really frightened of something, but you just don't know why? When I was 4 years old, my mother took me to the YWCA, and we got dressed in bathing suits, and we put on those rubber caps that turn your head into a helmet. And she picked me up, and she tried to take me down the steps into the shallow end of the swimming pool, but I would not have it. I started screaming. I started kicking and crying. I still remember my screams echoing, reverberating on the walls. She said to me, I don't understand. When you were little, you loved the water. So then I find out when I was 2 years old, my parents went on vacation and they stayed at a motel with a swimming pool. And I loved to stand on the edge of the pool and jump in the water. And my father would catch me. He'd bring me over to the side. I'd climb out. I'd jump in again. He kept doing that over and over. I kept jumping and jumping. And I loved it so much that when the adults were not around, I went to the swimming pool by myself, and I looked down into the blue, blue water of the deep end, and I jumped in. My father was not there to catch me, and I went right down to the bottom, and I died. When they finally found me and brought me up, my father gave me mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and all of this water came out of me, and my heart started to beat again. But I remember none of it, nothing of my life before I died. When I was 6, my family would go to the swimming pool, the public swimming pool in the summer, and all the kids who couldn't swim, and this is the city, so it's like there's hundreds of kids who can't swim. We're all hanging on to the edge of the pool. We're clinging on to that tile edge for dear life. And I remember kids like climbing over me and kids climbing under me, and I got a foot in my face. It was horrible, awful. I just didn't want to have anything to do with water ever. And then my grandfather moved to Monterey, California on the Pacific Ocean. First time I was at the beach, I looked at the ocean and it called me. I went down to the water's edge and it was freezing, that water. But I found out that the more that you went in, the more you got used to it. And after a while, I started bobbing up and down in the waves. And I found that even if you couldn't touch the bottom, the ocean carried you. And I learned to relax and go with the flow. And I would not leave. I spent hours and hours in the water. They could never get me out. And I'd come out and my skin would be all wrinkled like a raisin. I became part of the ocean, and the ocean became part of me. There was once a little girl walking on the beach with her father, and she pointed at me and she said, "Daddy, is that a mermaid?" Me. When I was an adult and I went sailing in Hawaii, I sailed into a lagoon and I swam over to the shore and I climbed up this cliff and looked down at the blue, blue water 20 feet from above. And there was only one thing to do. I dove in head first and the ocean carried me. I am not afraid of the water. I'm not afraid of drowning. I'm not afraid of dying. Been there, done that. I came out okay on the other side. The ocean. Oh, but I am not going to cling to the edge in fear. The ocean taught me, walk past your fears into your freedom. My, it's a beautiful world. I like swimming in the sea, out past the breakers where a woman can be free, or a man if you are one. I like swimming in the sea. Thank you.
Thank you, Bowen. Thank you for that, for being fierce, for all of our tellers, for bringing it. We've had 9 fierce, fabulous storytellers tonight, and all the stories, wonderful, just beautiful. I laughed, I cried, all of the above. I know they're Claire's clutching her pearls as it is. Okay, so we are going to, so here's what we're going to do. It's almost time to vote, and I'm going to bring the tellers back one at a time, just so you can see them again and hear the title of their story. And we're going to start with Bowen because she just went. And so we will start with Bowen. Hello, Bowen. Bowen told us, not afraid, been there and done that. And before that, we had Claire Castell, and Finding Jesus was Claire's story that she told us. Before her, Bonnie Gardner. Bonnie was there with her broken leg, A Leap for Laith. Prior to that, Neshama Franklin got her technology together and told 2 leaps start to finish. Katie Knutson joined us before Neshama. The Driving Fire was Katie's story. Brian Nazimuk, all the way from Canada, with Dear Brian. John Obeidus for A Lengthy Middle. There he is. There's John. Tracy Starrin, The Picnic. Tracy told us about The Picnic. And we started it off with a bang. Savannah Clark told us all about Sherman the Wonder Dog. Sherman the Wonder Dog. Those are our tellers. And so audience members, in order to vote, you're going to go to sfapshows.com. There it is. Our tech guru has magically put it up on the screen. And if you go there, there's going to be a red button that says vote. I think it's very obvious on the homepage there. And so you can go and you get 2 votes. Can't vote for the same person twice, but you get 2 votes. And so we ask that you work your way over there and get your votes done so we can tally those. And in the meantime, we are going to bring back to our stage our grand Stellar Slam Champion from last year, who's going to regale us with a tale. And we're happy to have her back. Thanks again, Shweta, Bat. Thank you for coming back to, brag, talk, and rub it in our face that you are indeed the grand champion for at least 5 more minutes. So thank you. Welcome.
I'm looking at the menu and I see a combination of bowls and toasts. I don't want a bowl. It's breakfast. I want a toast. So I asked them, do you have any gluten-free bread? The woman behind the counter says, yes, we have this specific brand, which I hate because there's some parts of it that are usually gummy and then there's some parts of it that are usually cardboardy. Do you have any other options? Well, we have a sourdough. It's made by a local bakery, and I hear sourdough, there's like some digestion of the gluten that happens that makes it a little bit better for people who can't tolerate gluten all that well. I mean, it seems like a pretty easy decision to make. But I haven't made any decisions on this trip. My partner, Tayo, he planned the whole thing. We're in Cape Cod, and I've never been to Cape Cod. I am born and raised in Massachusetts, but he spent a couple summers here, and he has all these places he likes to go, drive-ins and cafes, restaurants, beaches. I told him, it's all on you. And so he booked the Airbnb, and he drove us down there. I told him, wherever you tell me to go, I'll go. However many cafes you take me to, I'll get decaf. We will do anything and everything you want. And now it's my turn to make a decision. 5 years ago, I went gluten-free. I was having a lot of stomach issues. I mean, nothing was digesting. I was bloated to the point of looking like a pregnant woman at the end of every day, but I was losing weight like crazy. I didn't really want to focus on the fact that I was still at a job that drained the life out of me, that I was trying really hard to get out of a relationship that just wasn't right for me anymore, and the fact that I was trying to solve everybody else's problems before I was solving my own. So I found a doctor because I needed to get to the bottom of this stomach issue. And they took a bunch of tests, this long blood panel on all the things I was supposed to and not supposed to eat. And at the top of it was gluten. Like I had every single marker that said if my body ingested any gluten, everything would be on high alert. I wasn't celiac, but I was very, very close to it. So the doctor told me, you need to give up gluten completely. It'll make you feel better. Now I am Indian. I have grown up on roti and naan. I love cakes and cookies and bread. And I told my uncle at the age of 7 that carrot pizza is my dream meal. And now I can't eat any of it. But it's okay because I make this decision. There's nothing else I can do about anything else in my life, but maybe if I stop eating gluten, something will feel better. I will make myself feel better. So I stop, to the dismay of my family and my friends. When I'm on dates, I don't tell anybody that I'm gluten-free. I don't want them to think I'm a weirdo or that we can't go out to certain restaurants together. And then the pandemic hit. And I left my job, the one that wasn't serving me anymore. And the relationship, that was long gone too. I started sleeping. I started working on me, and I found a naturopath because even though I wasn't eating gluten anymore, I didn't feel good. I really didn't feel good. And she ran all these other tests and said, you need to go through a gut protocol. So I did it. I took the samples and the pills and the tinctures and the potions. I did it all for 9 months straight. And she took those same long blood tests again. She told me, I'm clear. All my markers for gluten, they're safe. That was back in March. She told me I could eat gluten again. Try it. Maybe don't go crazy, but every now and then, sure, why not? It's Memorial Day weekend, and I haven't eaten gluten yet. And now that I think of it, it felt like the one thing I was doing to make my life better. But my life is better. I'm in Cape Cod with this man that I love, doing things. I just saw 3 shooting stars the night before. I fell asleep at a drive-in, but it didn't matter. Maybe this time it'll be different. So I look at the lady. I look at Tayo, who says, honestly, it's up to you. Whatever you get, I'll eat some. I asked for the sourdough. We get an avocado toast and then another toast with kind of this beet-like schmear on top of it. And we take it outside to the balcony. I sit down. I cut each slice of bread into little slices so that I can eat them gracefully. And then I pray. And I tell God, hey, I hope this works out. I hope it feels better than all of those days I was keeled over on the floor. I hope I don't end the day just completely bloated. But if I do, it's been a good day. And I take a bite. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shweta, our winner from 2022. Good things happening to her this year. You'll see her around on shows, storytelling festivals. She lives on the East Coast, so maybe she'll be up in New Hampshire at the one that Katie mentioned. So best to you, Shweta, in all your storytelling endeavors and in everything and in the whole gluten-free. It's come a long way. So I'm going to bring to the stage with me Claire Hennessy, who is our co-producer, and she's going to waffle on for a bit about some upcoming shows that we have, and then we will get to the winner. Hey, Claire, how is it?
What a lovely evening of stories. Honestly, they were all so good. I hate it. I'm glad I'm not choosing. So over to you guys. Glad you got 2 choices. So while I'm giving you one last chance, you've got to put about 3 or 4 minutes while I rattle through our upcoming shows. So the first one we've got is called Pitch Us a Story. So all you storytellers out there, including those in the audience, if you've got an idea for a story, then you go to our website and there's a little red curtain that says Pitch Us a Story. Click on that and then pitch us a story and give us, obviously we know most of you, but give us a link to a story that you've told at some point. And then we might invite you on and then we pay you. Who doesn't want to get paid? So then come along. So that's what we've got. We've got 4 fabulous storytellers going to tell us wonderful stories. And then we've got the start of our 2023 open mic story slam. So this is the first one. The grass is greener. So that's in a month from today, Wednesday, March the 8th. So 10 storyteller slots and then obviously audience voting slots as well. So come and join us because we're lovely. And then you might be like Shweta and the world will be your oyster afterwards. It's all down to us, of course. And then also we're delighted to announce the Bay Area Storytelling Festival is back and we've announced our storytellers. And they are Antonio Hoja, they've got Ingrid Nixon, Tim Araneta and Dawn Fraser. They're all amazing storytellers. We'll also have workshops. We'll have open mic slams if you want to come. It's in Arinda in the East Bay in California, same as we had it last year. There'll be a virtual option. There'll also be the Asian American storytellers are doing something. There'll be young people telling stories. So there's so much going on, and you can watch virtually. We hope we can watch virtually, but when we're doing that, but also you come in person. It's going to be amazing. All right, 29th of April. So that's it. So I hope everybody then has finished voting.
All right. Do we have everybody do your own drum rolls in your head?
We
Well,
do.
Claire,
We have we've got a
dun.
very, very techie wise, because we are the tech company, for telling you how the winner, and it is Neshama Franklin.
Neshama Franklin.
Wow. You
Neshama.
better get ready for traveling, Neshama, because your life will open up like shredders.
Exactly.
Come to our stage.
I'm blown away. I'm utterly blown away, because what an evening of stories, each more delectable than the next. So I was, heart and throat. It was just wonderful. So thank you.
Well done, Neshama. We love you.
Okay.
We love you and your techiness.
We do.
But all the stories were wonderful. It's a shame we can't have more than one winner, but you're all winners to us. But well done, Neshama. Regina,
definitely the Stellar Slam. This is why we call it the Stellar Slam, because you are all rock solid in the stories that you tell, and wonderful. And just, literally, when I say I laughed, I cried, that is, it's true. Yeah. We had stories that were just made you laugh out loud and brought tears to your eyes. They were poignant, they were entertaining, all of the above. And so thank you for bringing it this evening. And Neshama, I'll be in touch. I think I've got your address because I mailed you a mug, so we can mail you your bragging
mug and a mic. Oh wow!
Yeah. What more can you ask, Neshama? Your life is now complete.
What I can ask for is stellar company like this all the time. It's so great. It's so wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everybody.
You are very welcome. Thank you for your story. Claire, is there anything I'm missing here?
I think that's it. Thanks to everybody on YouTube who were in our audience and who voted and who gave lovely comments. So that's really sweet of you to do that. And to everybody in our backstage, which is our tellers. We just really appreciate all their amazing stories. We're going to stay and have a bit of a chit chat, because I like to do that.
Claire gets sad if you leave too soon. So just humor her, will you?
Got to stay around, stick around and chat to me just for a little bit.
For just a bit. And Shweta, thank you so much for coming back and being our guest teller. Very much enjoyed it. It was certainly wonderful to see you again. Hope to see you. I'm sure I will see you on a virtual stage somewhere.
Yeah. Well done, Shweta, being brilliant.
All right. Well, good night, everyone. Thank you for coming. Check out our upcoming shows at sfapshows.com. Always wonderful to have you. Thank you.
Subscribe to us on YouTube.
Yep.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye. Good night, everyone. Drive safe.
6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you. 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical. So step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.